First of all, what is the core? And it's not just contracting the abdominal muscles, the six-pack, it's a bit more about that. So the core consists of 4 components. First of all, the diaphragm. Second, the transversus abdominis. Third, the multifidus muscles. And fourth, the pelvic floor. And the psoas muscle is also one component which I would like to talk later about it. So just have a look, let's have a look about these 4 components. So first of all, the diaphragm. Diaphragm, of course, very important, otherwise we wouldn't breathe. So the diaphragm is sitting in the middle of the trunk. It's a sheet of muscle, and it separates the digestive system to the heart and the lungs. And the diaphragm moves downwards with the inhalation, and it relaxes back again in the starting position with exhalation. So sometimes we get confused about that, about the movements, and we think when we inhale, the diaphragm moves up. But that's just a breathing into the chest. So the diaphragm every time moves into the abdomen deep and relaxes back again with the exhalation. And you can just observe this when people are not conscious, when they're sleeping, then the body is automatically coming back into the normal breathing pattern. So that we normally breathe in the abdomen and then relax again. So the second part is the transversus abdominis. And the transversus is a deep layer of the abdominal muscle, and it's very close to the spine. So, and it wraps around the whole trunk until it joins with the fascia into the vertebrae in the back. So that's important to know, that we have a combination or a connection from the front to the back, to the spine. So that these 2 parts are connected. And the third part is the multifidus muscles. And again, this is a deep layer, very close to the spine. So it's jumping from vertebra to vertebra and makes the spine very stable and makes a compact spine if when we are able to contract these muscles. And the fourth part is the pelvic floor. The pelvic floor is also called the diaphragm, which is quite interesting, and I will go more in detail about that later. The pelvic floor consists of a lot of muscles with complicated names, Latin names, and so I won't go in detail about that, but it's important to know where exactly is the pelvic floor hooked on the pelvis. And these are 4 major points. And the first one is the pubic bone in front, the tailbone in the back, and the 2 sitting bones. And the pelvic floor is not just a flat sheet of muscles, it's really like a hammock sitting in the pelvis, or like a bowl, the walls of a bowl. So it's quite deep in the pelvis. And so how's the physiology of the pelvic floor while breathing? And that's why I called a diaphragm, because it's moving with the breathing diaphragm. So when you inhale, the diaphragm moves down into the abdomen, and also the pelvic floor relaxes. And if you exhale, then the pelvic floor contracts. So that's the physiology, and that's why we instruct all the practices are the contraction of the core while exhaling. Because that's the pattern of the pelvic floor, that you have the physiology that you contract while exhaling. And when you put all these four parts together, the diaphragm, transversus abdominis, the multifidus and the pelvic floor, then just imagine you have like a cylinder or like a corset wrapped around your trunk. And you have at the bottom the pelvic floor and on top the diaphragm as a lid. And this gives you real good stability of the spine. And I was talking about the psoas as the fifth part, and the psoas is quite an interesting muscle. The psoas is hooked on the spine at the front on the vertebra and on the sides, and it starts from the thoracic, the 12th thoracic vertebra, and goes down until the 5th lumbar vertebra. And then it moves, crosses the hips, and goes down and hooks on the thigh, the inner thigh. And you can see the psoas like a rod in this cylinder, in the middle of the cylinder, which gives the cylinder another stability. So it's also good to visualize and to try to contract this muscle as well. So when we have a look at the trunk, we have two units of muscles. We have the deep unit, which is also called the local muscles, which I was just talking about, the diaphragm, the transversus abdominis, multifidus, and the pelvic floor. And then there is the outer unit, which are the muscles who are moving the body. The inner unit is more for stabilization, because the muscles are very close to the joints, so they can't generate a good momentum. But the muscles which are a bit more apart from the spine, they can create a good momentum and can move the body. So the outer unit are like the rectus spinae, the obliques, the rectus abdominis, and all the other muscles in the back as well.